There's a moment, a split second, and where your entire power collapses. You're called out, insulted, questioned. You feel the burn inside, the instinct to correct, to explain, to justify. But what if I told you that single moment is where 99% of people lose the game? You see, in the world of real power, not fake influence, not empty likes, the one who reacts loses, and the one who stays silent owns the room. Machiavelli didn't just teach strategy. He exposed the one fatal mistake that destroys even the smartest among us: defending yourself. Because in the psychology of dominance, defending is admission. It says, you have power over me, I need your approval, I'm guilty unless I explain. But the Machiavellian elite, they don't explain, they don't flinch, they don't defend. They unflip the frame and let you destroy yourself trying to reach them. In this video, you're about to unlock the darkest psychological truth you were never taught. The silent weapon that flips power, manipulates perception, and leaves your enemies exposed. Let's go deep into the mind of Machiavelli and uncover the ancient secret of never defend yourself. Because if you master this, you'll become something far more dangerous than innocent. You'll become untouchable. Every time you're accused, criticized, or insulted, your brain triggers a primitive response. Defend. It feels natural. It feels just. You're not trying to look weak. You're trying to explain. But that's the trap. That's the emotional bait. Because in the eyes of power, the moment you begin to defend yourself, you concede the frame. You're no longer the one in control of the narrative. You're now reacting, responding, proving. And power doesn't live in proof. It lives in presence. The second you justify your intent, you are telling the world, their accusation matters more than my position. And that's exactly how power slips out of your hands, quietly, invisibly, tragically. Machiavelli didn't write for the sensitive. He wrote for strategists. And to him, explaining yourself was like bleeding in a pool of sharks. The moment you show you're wounded, people stop listening and start circling. Not because they're evil, but because uncertainty breeds dominance. When someone sees you scramble to defend yourself, they subconsciously assume you're guilty, or at the very least, unsure. And in the game of power, uncertainty is death. You don't rise by making people understand you. You rise by making them feel your certainty, even when they don't understand you at all. There's a reason why the powerful speak less. It's not because they lack arguments. It's because every explanation cheapens their presence. The more you say, the less mystery you carry. The less mystery you carry, the less power you hold. Silence, when intentional, isn't passive. It's a weapon. It creates tension, discomfort, speculation. It shifts the burden of proof away from you and onto them. Let them wonder, let them doubt. Because the strongest position in any confrontation isn't clarity, it's unpredictability. Think about the last time someone made a subtle attack on you. A passive-aggressive comment, a questioning glance, a sarcastic tone. Your reflex was probably to clarify. No, I didn't mean it like that. You misunderstood me. Let me explain. But every word you say confirms their power. It says, you affected me. It tells the room, I need to justify myself. And once you need justification, you're already beneath them. Power isn't reactive, it's magnetic. You either draw others into your frame or get sucked into theirs. Choose wisely. The world rewards those who appear untouchable, not those who are agreeable. You don't earn respect by explaining yourself to everyone who questions you. You earn it by showing that you don't need to. That's what people remember. That's what burns into their subconscious. Not your defense, but your silence. Not your words, but your presence. And in that silence, they see something dangerous, something unpredictable, something they can't label, can't provoke, can't diminish. And that is the foundation of psychological power. The moment you choose silence over defense, something shifts. The room changes, the tone flips. People don't hear silence, they feel it. It stretches through the air, wraps around the minds of everyone present, and forces a question to rise. Why isn't he responding? This discomfort, this tension, it's not weakness, it's control. Because now, they're no longer focused on the accusation, they're focused on you. And the more you refuse to clarify, the more they start clarifying for you. This is the first reversal. They speak, you don't. and every word they say increases your power, not theirs. Powerful silence isn't passive, it's loaded. It creates cognitive tension that begs for resolution. The brain hates open loops, and when you don't respond, the loop stays open. People begin to fill it in themselves. Maybe he doesn't care. Maybe he's above it. Maybe he knows something we don't. And just like that, the control flips. The attacker becomes the one under the microscope. They're seen as aggressive, emotional, unstable. You, the quiet one, become the question they can't answer. And in the psychology of influence, questions are always more powerful than answers. This is what Machiavelli understood before most modern psychology did. The one who controls the frame controls the reality. If you defend yourself, you accept their frame. You say, your version of the story has merit. But if you don't react, you don't accept the premise. You reject the battlefield itself. And when you do that, your enemy starts to look like someone arguing with a ghost, swinging at air, trying to validate themselves to someone who no longer even acknowledges their existence. And that's how power becomes effortless. You don't overpower, you vanish. Try this the next time someone throws a jab in public. Don't blink, don't flinch, don't smirk. Just look at them, then look away, calmly, like they never existed. That small act, so subtle, shakes people to their core, because it communicates the one thing they're not prepared for: indifference. They wanted to trigger you. Instead, they disappeared in your silence, and the crowd watching, they start questioning the attacker. Was that necessary? Why is he so emotional? Why is he the only one talking? Just like that, the social power transfers to you, without you lifting a finger. Silence isn't just a lack of words, it's a stage, a battlefield. And if you stand in it with full presence, you turn it into a mirror. Every fear, insecurity, and projection of your attacker reflects right back at them. They feel exposed, not because you spoke, but because you didn't need to. And when others see that, when they see a man calm in the chaos, they assume he's holding power they don't understand. That assumption is your advantage. It turns you into myth. And in every social game, myth beats logic. Every time. Emotional control isn't just a virtue, it's a weapon. When everyone else is triggered, reactive, impulsive, the one who remains calm becomes dangerous. Why? Because calmness in chaos signals power. It says, I expected this. It says, I am above this. But even more, it shows that your emotional tempo can't be hijacked. And that makes you unpredictable. And in power dynamics, unpredictability is fear. No one fears a person who explains everything. But they fear the one who keeps his inner world locked tight, unmoved, unreadable. You want to know who owns the room? It's not the loudest. It's the one whose silence makes the loud uncomfortable. Most people live as emotional mirrors. Someone yells, they yell back. Someone mocks, they defend. Someone disrespects, they explain. But every time you mirror someone's emotional chaos, you give away power. You become predictable. Train yourself instead to become a wall, not a mirror. Let their storms crash and fall at your feet while you remain still. Because people aren't just watching what's said, they're watching who flinches first. The person who reacts emotionally is admitting, you got to me. But the person who remains centered, he becomes untouchable, not because he's cold, but because he's in command. Your calmness is not just for defense, it's an offensive move. It unsettles people. It forces them to overextend. In meetings, arguments, negotiations, when you refuse to match their emotional tone, they begin to lose coherence. They escalate, they ramble, they expose their instability. And you wait, you absorb. And then when the timing is right, you drop one line, measured, grounded, lethal. That's how you assassinate a frame, not with more noise, but with surgical precision. The calm man doesn't just survive the storm, he becomes the eye of it. People expect reactions. Society teaches us that if you're attacked, you must respond. That silence means guilt, but Machiavelli saw something deeper. He saw that silence is only weakness when it's rooted in fear, but when it's rooted in dominance, it becomes terrifying. It becomes a mirror. It reflects back insecurity without speaking a word. That's why the most powerful men in history were often the quietest in the room. Their silence wasn't empty, it was charged. It made people fill the void with their own fear. And that fear gave the silent one power he never had to ask for. To weaponize calm is to train your nervous system. It's not about pretending to be calm. It's about becoming a man who isn't moved. This takes discipline. It takes exposure to conflict without reacting. It takes watching your triggers without obeying them. But once you master it, you become rare. You become the presence people can't shake. You stop being a player and become the field. The room moves around you, not through you. And that's not just psychological strength. That's power. Real, silent, dominant power. Innocence is not power. It's comfort. It makes you feel good, justified, righteous. But power doesn't care about your intentions. It cares about perception. And when you defend yourself, you're not proving innocence. You're feeding the illusion that being innocent matters. It doesn't. In social dynamics, people don't care who's right. They care who looks like they're losing control. And the one defending always looks like he's on the back foot. Not because he's wrong, but because he's playing a losing frame, the frame of desperation. Machiavelli understood this before social media weaponized it. The more you try to explain yourself, the more suspicious you look. You think you're clarifying the truth, but to others it looks like damage control. It looks like panic. And panic smells like guilt. That's why the strongest men say the least when attacked. They don't scramble, they don't explain, because every word they'd offer would validate the attacker's authority. To defend is to agree with the premise, that they had the right to judge you. And once you agree, you've already surrendered. This is why silence, true, grounded, unapologetic silence, is so unsettling. It doesn't play the game. It rejects the battlefield. It removes your opponent's weapon by never stepping into their arena. And suddenly, the attacker isn't fighting a person anymore. He's fighting a shadow, a mystery, an absence. And people fear absence more than presence, because they can't argue with it, can't defeat it, can't pull it into their narrative. The more you disappear, the more they unravel, because the power dynamic flips. The hunted becomes the ghost. Here's the paradox. The more you try to prove you're good, the more people assume you're not. Because goodness explained feels fake. It feels rehearsed. But when someone accuses you and you remain still, composed, unbothered, it disrupts the emotional script. They expect resistance, they expect plea, but they get nothing. Just your quiet presence, like a stone in a storm. That's not what weakness looks like. That's what unshakable looks like. And unshakable always wins, not by force, but by refusing to play the role of the accused. You must understand, truth doesn't matter to those who want drama. Explanation doesn't matter to those who want dominance. The more you feed the flame, the more it burns you. So stop feeding it. Starve the fire, starve their narrative. Let your silence become the pause that forces reflection. Let your lack of reaction be the mirror to their chaos. Because once you stop playing their game, you force the world to confront yours. And in your world, you don't beg to be seen as innocent. You stand as undeniable, and that terrifies them more than any denial ever could. There is a difference between having power and being perceived as powerful. One is based on resources, the other is based on presence. And in social dominance, presence always wins. People don't follow the most moral. They follow the most certain. Not the most agreeable, but the most unfazed. That's why the untouchable man, the one who doesn't defend, doesn't justify, doesn't flinch, gains more than respect. He gains gravity, a psychological mass that bends the social space around him. He doesn't ask for attention. Attention orbits him naturally. Not because of what he says, but because of what he withholds. When people can't predict you, they can't control you. And when they can't control you, they fear you. Not because you're dangerous in the traditional sense, but because you've exited the emotional system they operate in. They throw words, you offer none back. They posture, you remain still. They accuse, you stare. And this unnerves them more than any argument ever could. Because your silence doesn't feel passive, it feels designed, strategic. And people fear what they can't figure out. They respect what they can't provoke. That's not kindness, that's aura. You don't need to be feared to be powerful, but you do need to be unreadable. Because the moment people can map you, predict your reactions, push your buttons, you lose all leverage. You become emotional furniture, always there, always reactive, always explainable. But the untouchable man? He is chaos behind calm, depth behind stillness. Everyone assumes something dangerous lives in the silence he holds. And that assumption builds a reputation far stronger than any defense ever could. He becomes not just respected, he becomes a question no one wants to answer. People crave certainty. They seek patterns. And when they don't get it from you, they elevate you. Not because you tried to be elevated, but because you didn't try at all. In a world of over-explaining, your refusal becomes rare. Your silence becomes signal. Your stillness becomes suspicion. And suspicion, when unconfirmed, becomes myth. You're no longer a person defending his reputation. You are now a presence too precise to be touched, too centered to be moved. And that transformation only begins the day you stop defending yourself. Stop defending yourself, not because you're guilty, but because defending is no longer the strategy of the powerful. The world doesn't reward clarity, it rewards command. And you don't gain command by explaining. You gain it by standing. Still, calm, unshaken. From this moment forward, speak only when it shifts the balance. Respond only when silence would cost more. Let the rest of the world play defense. You live in definition. And when they try to reach you, let them feel what it means to chase a ghost. That's not ego, that's mastery. And if this hit deep, if you felt your power returning as the words unfolded, subscribe now. Because on this channel, we don't chase validation. We embody control. Welcome to Mind Truth.